What is that?
Over the last 10 years, the Monsterverse has built a pretty successful franchise off of the backs of the old Godzilla and King Kong properties, starting in 2014 with Gareth Edwards' Godzilla, and continuing in 2017 with Kong Skull Island before getting even more sequels like King of the Monsters and a TV series. Godzilla and Kong have had a pretty big resurgence these last few years, with Godzilla vs. Kong being a big hit after the initial hit of the pandemic. But the sequel to that movie has just come out, and I got to see it last night in a pretty packed movie theater. So here's what I think about the new film and what could happen with this whole Monsterverse brand in the future if it's successful.
Something is coming.
Godzilla and Kong: The New Empire is a 2024 monster movie directed by Adam Wingard. It stars Rebecca Hall, Brian Tyree Henry, Dan Stevens, and Kaylee Hoddle. The movie picks up after Godzilla and Kong took down Mechagodzilla, with Kong having to fight to survive in the Hollow Earth, and Godzilla pretty much laying the smackdown on anything on the surface. But when an ancient entity begins to cause problems deep within an uncharted area of the Hollow Earth, that's when Kong and Godzilla and Monarch have to dive into a situation that quickly escalates into an all-out monster battle that gets wildly inventive and seriously original. Now, I just want to start this video off by saying this movie is insanely wild, very messy, but also extremely fun. Godzilla and Kong: The New Empire is one of the wackiest and most imaginative science fiction movies I've seen in a long while, and I think one of the reasons it works so well, the audience loved this, by the way, and I'll talk more about that later, but I think one of the reasons it works is because it's almost like a Showa movie from the 1970s for Godzilla, only from a Western perspective. There's a lot of like Ray Bradbury, Edgar Rice Burroughs, maybe even some Robert E. Howard, like from way earlier pulpy stuff, and that's the best way I can describe this movie. It takes Kong and Godzilla and brings them back into that super pulpy, weird, imaginative sci-fi from the 1970s. There's moments where I thought they were making fun of or lampooning or doing a parody of like 2001, or even that scene where like Spock is wigging out in the first Star Trek movie. A lot of this movie feels very vintage retro fun, and I think it's also extremely imaginative. The whole Hollow Earth ecosystem of creatures is very fun, especially with a little cameo by Doug, but there's also cool stuff that just, it works. I don't know what it is about the Monsterverse right now, but they have finally found their stride. They've done it for a few years, admittedly, but like, this is the kind of fun stuff that I think I just want to see much more of. I think there will be a sequel to this, and even though the movie is messy, the audience does not care. Now, should they care? Should you walk into Godzilla and Kong: The New Empire and expect a Dark Knight level experience of prestige and just full-on Godfather style quality? No, and you know that in your heart of hearts, but that doesn't mean that Godzilla movies or King Kong movies can't be great, because the 1933 original Kong and the 1954 original Godzilla, or even last year's Godzilla -1, are incredible, very good, high-stakes films, but this is a different thing. If Godzilla -1 was a medium rare ribeye steak cooked to perfection with a great amount of like sides, Godzilla and Kong: The New Empire is your McDonald's chicken nugget like 50 count bucket or whatever. Like, this is just a Big Mac of a movie, and the audience loved it for that. Now, the general plot takes ideas from all over the place. I clocked some stuff from Godzilla 1985, maybe even 2000, but it also was picking up on a lot of Planet of the Apes style stuff with Kong, and you could even retitle this thing King Kong and the Temple of Doom once they go deep in the Hollow Earth, which, by the way, everything they're doing here is actually what I think, this is what's gonna make or break this movie. The fact, and it's gonna make it, the fact that this movie actually listened to what the fans wanted to see after Godzilla vs. Kong. Like, one of the things I said was like, it would be so cool to see like a zero gravity fight in the Hollow Earth. And what do they do in this movie? Well, they do something great that it's cool to see them actually listen to fans. You know, I'm really hoping that Jurassic Park takes inspiration, not necessarily from the Monsterverse, that's not what I'm trying to say, but like the fact that the Monsterverse listens to the fans. Like a lot of fans in Jurassic Park, they kind of want to see a Quiet Place Day One style movie. I doubt they'll ever do it, but like the fact that Godzilla and Kong are actually listening, like, okay, what do the fans want to see? Like, let's put it in there. There's a great, even Doug, like being in a little part of the movie, there's a great scene where the audience was just flipping out. There's the introduction of the little Kong, the Son of Kong character. There's this girl sitting in front of us at the movie theater, and she's like, oh, baby Kong, a baby Kong, oh, and she's like, everybody in the theater's looking at her like it's so funny because she's getting all excited. King Kong picks the little Kong up and starts beating the other Kongs with him, and the audience is just hysterically laughing. There's a scene where Godzilla vertical suplexes Kong off a pyramid. There's other stuff that, like, this was super fun, and yes, it is a mess. There's a scene early on where or actually not early on, but much later into the movie, where one of the characters is like, you know what, Kong could really use the super advanced battle weapon that I've just, you know, now announcing exists in this universe. Let me go back and go get it. And you know, he treks through the jungle and gets in a spaceship and just unloads this thing on King Kong. Everybody's just waiting for him to come back. Like, this movie's a mess. This movie is all over the place, but honestly, nobody really cares, man. This is Godzilla and Kong, the New Empire. Like, this is not -1, it's not Shin Godzilla, it's not even Peter Jackson's King Kong or anything like that. This is the kind of movie that you don't really care. And one of the reasons you don't care is the fact that the cast is actually great. Everybody here did an incredible job. I have literally no complaints with the human cast whatsoever. In fact, Bernie is one of the funniest characters in any Monsterverse movie anywhere I've ever seen. He plays this very likable Alex Jones style guy that's on like Podcast for Monsters. He has a Turok Evolution logo on his vest. I loved that character. I loved everything he did in the movie. I loved everything that came out of the guy's mouth. He is so relatable. He is so likable. He is so fun. And this whole movie, I guess that's how I would describe it. It's a big, fun, wacky mess, but it's also highly original and imaginative. In fact, I don't really think I can do it justice until I really talk about all of the things in the movie that got so right. Like Kong, super likable. I don't know how they took an animal and made him kind of like, he's like the main character. One of the things I don't understand is like, what does the script look like for this movie? Like, there's certain scenes where it's just all Kong for like long stretches of time, either trekking through the Hollow Earth or like fighting monsters. And I'm like, how are they making this so, how is this being executed so well? Like, you like him in pretty much everything he does. In fact, you even like his relationship with the little Kong, which becomes a very like father-son God of War style thing. And Godzilla is just insanely overpowered. I don't think this version of Godzilla could be beaten by any other Godzilla because this is just too much. Like, he has reached a point where he is so invincible. It's almost like hilarious. He literally is the king of the monsters, and in fact, he destroys like Scylla. He goes up against Tiamat. One of the big highlights of the movie actually for me is like, there's this whole subplot where Godzilla's just getting stronger and stronger, and he goes up against Tiamat, which is, it's even cool how the Monsterverse has incorporated the monster names like Methuselah or Tiamat, which is like a polemic of, or Leviathan became a polemic of Tiamat in Psalm 74. So there's like deep ancient meaning and cool stuff behind these creatures, and Godzilla is just this unstoppable force, and he just rolls up on other monsters and just like, he really is the Macho Man Randy Savage of the Monsterverse. It's crazy.
The belt means nothing at this point. It's a little bit personal. Oh yeah.
The new lore, by the way, and the new creatures that they introduced into this film are great. And I don't even necessarily mean the just animals that you see in the Hollow Earth. There's actually Shimo and Scar King. Scar King is great on a level of a more Planet of the Apes style villain. His movements are very cool. He's more of a lanky Kong sort of like demon creature with these dead eyes, and his weaponry is very cool. Again, Indiana Jones had to have been inspirational in some way with that whip. But also, there's a very cool Planet of the Apes style dynamic between the apes and Kong. And Scar King and Shimo is this Barney looking like creature that just shoots frost beams out of its mouth, but is also very cool. And then you've got another surprise appearance by a monster that was very fun and very well done indeed. All in all, I gotta say, this movie's new additions and the fact that the audience reacted so positively to like so much of it. In fact, I don't think the audience really complained at all. They were getting very much into it, and I'm starting to see people at the movies that are not just monster movie nuts. Like, you normal monster movie nuts, there was people behind me that were actually talking about how their favorite movies were Final Wars and Biollante. These movies are actually bringing Godzilla and King Kong like to the forefront, whereas stuff like the MCU's kind of dying. A lot of these legacy sequel brands are not really churning out much like gold anymore, but Godzilla and Kong seem to ironically have risen above, and they come from kind of campy reputations in the modern day, which is, it's just very interesting to say the least. Overall, it is a messy film. A lot of stuff just happens for no reason, but the actual reason you come there is for the wild monster fights and the CGI and special effects, and I gotta say, they delivered. Like, every part of the movie was fun to watch. I even enjoyed the exploration of the Hollow Earth with the cast. I thought that the cast was incredibly fun. Nobody did a bad job in my opinion. You've got heavy metal John Hammond, like, walking around with a gun, and he gets eaten by a tree before Bernie is flipping out filming everything for his podcast. There's this trapper character who's insane doing wild stunt stuff, and then you've got on top of that, like, Rebecca Hall did a great job. Everybody did a great job. Gia and everything she does with her relationship with Kong is very meaningful. At times this movie does feel like Stargate, and it does feel like a Twilight Zone sort of wacky journey to the center of the earth thing, and I loved it. I don't know how else to really talk about it. Like, I will watch this movie again, and I will have a great time. In fact, I did get to see Ghostbusters: The Frozen Empire. Haven't talked about it yet. I actually saw it a while ago. I liked this better than that. And I don't really necessarily think that that movie was like terrible or anything, but just walking out of this, I was like, that was everything I could ever imagine I wanted out of an American Godzilla and King Kong team up battle. Like, at times it's like you're watching a WCW pay-per-view. I don't know how to explain it. It's just very, very fun. It was so fun, in fact, that at the end of the movie, the audience clapped. And it wasn't one of those claps where they're like, oh my God, I'm glad I get to go out of here. They had a great time. There should be more of these. Hopefully this makes a ton of cash, because I really just want to see movies that are good. And while this is not what I would call a 5-star classic, I do think it knows what it is. And to quote someone like Roger Ebert on his Lara Croft Tomb Raider review, which I included in my own review of Lara Croft Tomb Raider, he said this is the kind of movie that gives you exactly what you want and exactly what you expect out of it. And I think Godzilla and Kong: The New Empire is that. And I know a lot of people be like, oh, we need more like A24 style, like Dark Knight. Like, nah, man, like, this gives me what I want. I want more of it. I had a blast. Godzilla and Kong: The New Empire, the audience literally clapped. There should be more of these, and they should get insane and crazy and bring Bernie back no matter what. Like, he's got to stay at the forefront of all of this stuff. I loved it. I think there should be more of these, and I would love to see how they actually tackle other Toho creatures like Anguirus or something like that brought into this universe. But all in all, Godzilla is so overpowered, King Kong is so likable, and the entire lore and like monster battles that they put together here, perfect. I don't know how to describe it any other way. Had a great time. Godzilla and Kong: The New Empire, I don't usually grade movies, but if I had to, I'd probably say it's like a 3 out of 4 in like general terms of what you can expect. Very fun movie. I think that the Monsterverse has really cut a name for itself in a great way. This is how you build franchises that last. And I think this is going to get a sequel, and I definitely want it to get a sequel. Anyways, guys, those are all just my own thoughts and opinions on Godzilla and Kong: The New Empire. I know there's Toho purists that hate anything that's not made in Japan, but you gotta understand, like, from a point of view of someone like me that not only loves monster movies, but also loves the deeper lore with like how they're made, and not just specifically Godzilla stuff, but also King Kong stuff and Planet of the Apes stuff and stuff from the 1960s, 70s, even 50s. Like, this is a classic sci-fi monster movie that if it had come out in the 70s or 80s, you would have seen everybody talking about this in those circles. And we're really fortunate to get a movie like this today. But those are all just my own thoughts and opinions, guys. Now, whatever yours happen to be, I'd love to hear all about them in the comments down below. Let me tell you something, brother. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. I really appreciate it. And if you'd like to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you can be updated when I put out new videos. God bless you all. Christ is King. I hope you all enjoyed your time. And as always, take it easy.